Commanders on the road at the Eagles this weekend for the NFC Championship. Philly laying 5.5, total of 48. The Commanders have been proving everybody wrong, it feels like, for the entire season and the entirety of the playoffs. Can they prove people wrong one more time?
I think so. I can't believe this number moved to 6. Like, I can't believe it. Like, I was expecting this to go down, like, and move in the Commanders' direction, where maybe we would see a 5, maybe a 4.5. But I feel like people are just still not quite believing what the Commanders are doing, which is fine with them. They love playing with this chip on their shoulder. Not even a chip on their shoulder. That's not even it. It's just that they don't care. They just don't care, and they're sort of accustomed to this because they've seen it all season. I think they can make a real run here. I think they can win this game. I will gladly take the Commanders at +6. And the main reason why has to do with the Eagles. Like, what is the status of Jalen Hurts? His knee is banged up. He didn't look the same in the second half against the Rams, and that's going to seriously affect their RPO game. The real problem is, and it is going to be the issue, which is the issue for every team that matches up against the Eagles, can Washington stop Saquon? I don't know if they can. So this might be another game where I don't want to necessarily say a shootout, but Washington is going to have to put up a lot of points on that Eagles defense, because as much as the Commanders might try to stop the run, like even in that win against Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs kind of ran all over them, and Saquon went for almost $150 in 2 games against the Commanders this season. 150 yards against them back on December 22nd, 146 yards against them back on November 14th. So even throughout this season, we've seen Saquon run all over the Commanders. They've got to find a way to slow him down a little bit, which is another thing that's easier said than done.
Right. I mean, look at the list of teams who have slowed down Saquon Barkley. It doesn't feel like it's a very long list. I will say this, even though the Commanders gave up some big runs to Jahmyr Gibbs, they still won that game. But it does feel like this is a very different assignment than that last game against the Lions. It just feels like it's going to be a different style of game, because as opposed to the Lions, who are going to play in a shootout, and they had a laundry list of defensive injuries, including in that game, the Eagles defense is really good and really physical. I feel like this is going to be a much more physical test for the Commanders, but I'm not going to sit here and say, why should we believe in the Commanders? Because I've been proven wrong so many times that it feels like now that you're getting 6 points, especially when I think that the Eagles are going to try to slow this game down. And the thing about the Eagles that we've seen throughout the regular season and even in the postseason is a lot of these wins aren't super dominant. Like, it feels like they're not putting away these games in the moments in which they can. They're continuing to run the ball and chew down the clock. So maybe the Eagles win this game, but I still think I'm leaning towards the 6 points with the Commanders.
I think that's where I'm going to lean. And also, I think that 2 things I think are going to define this game. A, Saquon, and then B, how successful can the Commanders be on 4th down? Like, their 4th down conversion rate this season is 81%. Like, that is unbelievable. They've gotten to the point where if it's 4th and 4, 4th and 5, most coaches are going to say, all right, let's bring in the field goal unit. Not the Commanders. It's, look, we've got Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays. We've got Jayden Daniels. We're going to go. We're going to go. If they can be that successful against Philly, which is going to be tough because Philly has arguably the best defense remaining in the playoffs, had the best defense in the NFL throughout the season, then they can hang here. They can win this game. But can they against this Eagles defense? Then again, every single time I've doubted the Commanders this season, they've gotten it done. And also, look, this is a divisional game. I know it's easy to say NFC Championship game. This is a divisional game, and you know how it is with divisional games in the National Football League. So even if this was during the regular season and I was getting the Commanders +6, I'd be like, man, there's no way the Eagles should be laying 6 in this spot. And I feel the same, even though it's the NFC Championship game, especially with a quarterback he's not questionable. He will play, but I think how healthy he is a huge question mark going in.
Yeah, that's definitely something to monitor because at some point, like, one would think you can't get by on only throwing for 120 some yards, in all of these wins, especially if Washington is slinging around. I'm looking at the passing yardage prop because that was a winner for us last week. Jayden Daniels going over his passing yards, but obviously that game was an absolute shootout between him and the Lions. Passing yardage prop this week, 221.5. So it's gone down. This secondary certainly is better. This defense is certainly is better. And I'm not sure if this is going to be as much of a shootout. So, Jenks,
Mm-hmm.
I still think I'm leaning towards the over here. Do you think this is a game that Jayden Daniels has to win with his arm?
Ooh, that is a very good question, Chelsea. He's gonna have to make some plays. Yes, he's not gonna have to play hero ball here, but he is going to have to. He's gonna have to make some passes, and also it looks like Quinion Mitchell probably will be out for the Eagles, so that's something that maybe it's a matchup that maybe the Commanders can take advantage of. Yeah, he's gonna have to make some plays. He can't just do it with his legs. I think the Eagles will spy him or make sure that he doesn't beat them on the ground. But the one thing about Jayden is they have some design runs with him. He's very good about picking his spots and deciding when he's going to take off, which is rare for a rookie quarterback. A lot of times, these rookie quarterbacks, they feel the pressure and immediately take off. Jayden he's willing to take a big hit. He'll take off when he needs to, but he's not going to panic in the pocket. And also another guy we should talk about later on this week is De'Ami Brown, who has really stepped up over the past couple games. That could be a secret weapon for the Commanders as well.
Yeah, especially if you're going to drape yourself all over Terry McLaurin. They can beat you with De'Ami Brown.
I like Philly. I like Philly in the game. I like them at 5.5. 6, I still would lean their way, but once we start getting to 6.5, 7, if we do, that's a different conversation. Here's my concern for Washington in this game, and it feels like myself included. I mean, everybody's been doubting them the entire postseason, and Jayden and the Commanders just keep proving everybody wrong. My thing, though, is that Detroit never saw Jayden in the regular season, right? Tampa Bay saw him all the way back in week 1, which was a way different version than what they saw when they faced him in the playoffs. Also, Washington got to play in Tampa, where the weather's very nice. Then they got to play in Detroit, where it's a dome. So now you're playing a team that's already seen Jayden 2 times. You're playing in a game where it's going to be cold outside. Keep in mind, this is a guy who played his college ball at Arizona State and LSU. I understand it gets cold in the Washington area, but Jayden hasn't had to play a game yet, especially of this magnitude in the weather. So I do worry about those two things for Washington. The fact that they really haven't had to deal with weather, and they haven't played a team that's seen this version of Jayden yet. And Philly has both of those things going for it. Also, Jalen Hurts and the injury. I understand the perception around Philly and the fact that they won't have a passing game, but they're just going to lean on Saquon. And they got to give it to him 25, 30 times, and that's what they're going to have to do. And again, Philadelphia, yes, they're a team that can turn the ball over, but that's what Washington's going to need in this game. They obviously got the fumble from Baker Mayfield, which flipped that game, and they won it. Then they get 5 turnovers from Detroit, and they win it there. So Washington's a team that's kind of just been feasting off of other teams' turnovers. If Philly does that again on Sunday, that they're in big trouble. But I think being at home and being a team that wants to run the football, I think that's going to limit a lot of Washington's opportunities to get fumbles in this game. I do have my concerns about Jayden outdoors in cold weather, and I have my concerns about the fact that this Eagles defense that's really good has already seen him twice this season. So there's a lot of things that points me to the Eagles in this game. I think 6 is probably the point where it would cut off for me at Philly. If we get above that, that's where I'd lay off. But at 6, I like the Eagles in the game.